Hearings into the appointment of former New South Wales Premier John Barilaro to a plum trade role will resume tomorrow. As that inquiry rolls on, the newly elected independent for Mackellar in the federal parliament, Sophie Scamps, has unveiled plans to introduce a bill to parliament that would establish an independent process to fill departmental positions. She hopes to put the bill to parliament before the end of the year to end what she calls jobs for mates appointments. Let's bring in Sophie Scamps now, the member for Mackellar. Sophie, thanks very much for your time. You're not even in Parliament yet, of course, resumption of Parliament next week and your first sitting there, but this is obviously a big priority for you. Talk us through how this would work.
Yes, 100%. This is a very big priority for the people of Mackellar and I think Australians across the country. People have absolutely had a gutful of this whole culture of jobs for mates, and it really undermines, the trust in both our democracy and our public institutions. So we really do need to create a framework where we are able to have a transparent and merit-based process for appointments.
And a report today that you've pointed out, the Grattan Institute, suggesting that 1 in 5, or actually more than that, it's about that number, a fifth of federal appointed board members are political appointees.
Yeah, it's not good enough. I think, as I said before, Australians have had enough. We need to know, we need to be able to trust our democracy. We need to be able to trust the decisions of our public institutions. And we're talking about institutions like the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, the Freedom of Information Office, even our Climate Change Authority. We need to be able to trust the decisions that these bodies are coming up with because they do underpin our democracy. They are the core of our democracy. So it's strengthening all those institutions around our democracy.
Have you reached out to your parliamentary colleagues to gauge support on this?
This is definitely an issue which is important to all my colleagues and also I think to the government as well. We've had discussions with about the Integrity Commission, of course, with the Attorney General, and this is a part of building back integrity into our system. And also talking to bodies like the Centre for Public Integrity and the Grattan Institute as well. There's a lot of stakeholders, and I think Australians, it's time for us to have a democracy that we can trust again and that can make impartial decisions.
Do you think that there is a place for former politicians to serve in roles, in high-profile roles like ambassadors or high commissioners? There's been a tradition that in some posts it's actually better to have a politician appointed because they have direct lines of communication and so on to counterparts still in the parliament. Do you accept that in some cases it's appropriate?
Yes, look, I do accept that. I think that's fair enough and I do think it's appropriate in some situations. But what we have, where we have political appointments that are making decisions about how our democracy runs, I think that's where we run into trouble.
Now on to the issue of the government legislating its climate targets. What's your position on that 43% target, and will you be supporting the government's efforts to legislate it?
Look, I am really grateful that the current government has decided to collaborate on this and really welcome the briefing that they gave the crossbench on the draft climate bill as well. And I even had a meeting with Minister Bowen and his team this morning just to clarify some questions that we had about the draft bill. And they have invited submissions to be in, by this week as well. So, look, there are ways that we think it can be strengthened because we need this bill, we need this legislation to, do our service for the next 30 years, not just for the next 3 years. So we've got to make sure that there's accountability and integrity in this bill as well. So it is a very important time for us here, and definitely the people of Mackellar want there to be a strong action on climate. We want to keep global temperature rise to that 1.5 degree above pre-industrial levels. So yes, it's an exciting time and really welcome as well that the government has decided to act on this as well.
It sounds like you're certainly being constructive in terms of the government's approach and plans there. Would you urge others in the parliament like the Greens to do the same?
Look, everyone has their agenda. I think we're all working. I think everyone's working in good faith to get the best outcome in this bill. So yes, we need to have a collaborative, consensus-driven approach, because we know that's the way that you bring everyone along, and that's how you get a long-lasting sort of approach to these very vexed and complex problems. As we saw in the New South Wales state government, I mean, Minister Matt King was able to bring along all the different political parties, and now we have the renewable energy zones and the target as well for 2050 and 2030 in New South Wales. And so it's that type of consensus building and collaboration which we know can really produce that long-lasting legislation.
Independent member for Mackellar, Sophie Scamps, thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks so much for your time.